people that the bear can do anything.
Who remembers what the team's called in self-direction? Your team for an IEP meeting is called the Committee on Special Education.
Basically teaches people about what we want to do in our futures.
It started slow and kind of grew, and it started with the need of just wanting students to be able to be a part. So a friend of mine, Christy Drinkwater, and I both decided that it was important that students have more of a say.
I wanted to get involved in student-directed CSE meetings because I've been to so many CSE meetings that were almost contentious. There were students that had heads on the tables that weren't involved in the conversation going around them. People were speaking over them and for them, and I felt like it was a lot of us versus them, either from the parent perspective or from the teacher perspective.
We didn't start with student-led. We just started with students being a part of. And that grew. And then we started looking online, and we found that some other teachers in the United States were doing this, and we started to share materials with them and kind of came up with our own little mini curriculum of prep materials for the IEP meeting.
The preparation begins in September when you get to know your students, and that's really the bottom line. You have to know them, who they are, what their likes are, what their dislikes are, what drives them, what motivates them.
Our curriculum now kind of focuses on breaking the IEP into 3 parts, which actually helped me as a teacher when I'm trying to explain it with families, when I'm trying to just explain the IEP. There's really 3 parts. The 3 parts of an IEP are the present, call them present levels of performance. But when I talk with my students, I kind of talk about like, what happened this year? What did you do? What modifications did you use? Did you like those modifications? Did it work to have somebody read your test to you? Kind of all of that stuff that we always talk above them about. We're just asking them, how did this year go? So there's the now, this year, the present levels of performance.
What I'm doing right now is working at the library and then starting work at the Y.
You
Cook.
Yeah, you make cookies.
I have a job working with seniors.
This year I worked at HMV Clinton Center and Dollar Tree.
One of the main things that stands out to me is self-awareness. Students typically don't think about themselves in systematic ways regarding strengths and weaknesses. Too often when adults lead the meetings, it's from a deficit-based orientation. Students don't really think that way.
To talk about my weaknesses, it was hard because I wanted to convey it in a way that people could understand so that like it wouldn't just be that I have this weakness and it can't be overcome, like it could work.
You know, not only did I say what I feel like I could improve on, but I did say the things that I was weak at. And I said, I'm not good at this, I need work in this area and this one. But I also said what I was good at.
And then there's the future. The formal name on the IEP is Post-Secondary Measurable Outcomes. The most intense, I think, for a student to work on. It's so much fun to work with them on that because like they should be writing what they want to do after high school. So many times the teacher writes that.
It's important for them to hear what I want and what I can or can't do. It's important for them to understand who I am as a person.
When a student directs their own CSE meeting, they come in prepared with some slides that talk about where they're at currently, where they're going to go in the future, and then it does take some time for them to prepare these CSE slides.
So the students write what they're going to do after high school.
The slides I made about about my goals, my future, and my my abilities.
I had what I was going to do after high school, after college, and that would be being a police officer, going to the academy.
In my presentation, I talked about how I want to become a landscape photographer.
I plan on going to college.
If you can then write the future, if the student tells you what you want in the future, what he or she wants in the future, then the next part's easy. But the next part's typically the hardest part. It's the last part of the IEP, which is next year. What are your goals for next year? What is the school going to do for you next year to make you succeed at these life goals of yours? What is the next slide? Yes. Goals. Goals for when? Next year. Next year. All right, so if you look up at my IEP, I've got some goals for next year. And it goes towards my future goal. So your goals should go to your future. So if you tell me that you would like to work with children in your future, then maybe next year you should take some child first aid classes. If you break it down into 3 parts, it doesn't become this 20-page document that's so daunting for everyone at the table. So that's what we did, was we broke it into 3 parts. We taught it to students. We spent a lot of time teaching it, and then we let them roll with it. The last part is the practice. So as the IEP meeting's coming up, we actually kind of set up the room like an IEP. I set up this table like we're at an IEP meeting. Welcome to my IEP meeting. I'm Heather, and here's a picture of me at my job. One thing that they're really nervous about is the beginning of the meeting. And so we practice that introduction. And we actually practice it where everybody is kind of talking about their weekend and everything. And the student kind of has to say, can we make this meeting start? And can we all introduce ourselves? And they actually run that introduction. So you've got all these people sitting around, all making big decisions with you at the center, right? Who are these people? Who comes to an IEP meeting? Noelle. During the mock IEP, the people who are at the IEP meeting, I have students play those roles. So just in playing those roles during this mock, they're public speaking, they're seeing what an IEP is going to look like without needing to be the pressure of the leader, and they're seeing who's at the IEP meeting, and they get other ideas. They hear, oh, he's going to take 1 college class? I didn't even know that was possible. I thought you had to either go 4 years or not go. You could take 1, We're trying to make it so that when they get to college and they've got to talk to that professor about what their testing accommodations might need to be, that they can verbalize those. So for that higher level student, it's amazing because the first thing that you're going to be asked in college is, what's your disability and why do you need these? And if they've ran a CSE meeting, they'll be able to do that. So having students play the role lets them see this process 9 times instead of just when they go. And by the end, everybody's ready.
I prepared for my CSE meeting by first making a slideshow and then kind of rehearsing it daily, every day, because I had resource every day.
Within the resource room, as a case manager, it's important for the students to focus on where they're going in life. We call that transition at the high school.
Well, when I had Mrs. Drinkwater, she basically prepared us all at once, but then separately. So she told us that we were going to be in the meeting, what we were going to talk about, who we were going to be with, and then she consulted with us privately.
I practiced of maybe I printed out my own slideshow, my slide, and then I just practice it.
And you can see them just in practicing, they want to make edits. So in a way, it's that next part of the writing process. It's that next part of anything, is that you don't just do it once, you make some edits. It's okay
You can change your mind.
to change your mind.
Yeah.
And I make sure that during the practice meeting that they look at the other people at the table and make them feel part of the team.
At the meeting, show them that you're capable.
You're playing for your future. want to get advice from teachers. You want to have the best feedback that you can get.
Important, hear my voice.
The important thing in a CSC meeting is to show your strength.
Being in charge and taking charge and having people come in and watch you and help you, because we're a circle of people. So your job coach comes, your teacher comes, your parent comes. People are nice and helpful.
It was more relaxed than I thought it would be. It was more of just me talking and everyone else just listening.
It flows so much simpler when the student has more of a say.
The meetings themselves tend to be much less contentious, more positive. Everything's focused on the student. It's more about the accomplishment that they've made in leading their meeting. It's about their voice in the meeting. It's about what they want. It tends to minimize much of the contentiousness that might have been in the meeting in the first place.
When the student leads the meeting, the people at that meeting are part of a team, and then they leave that meeting also as part of a team. When the students are leading their own CSC meeting, they're very focused on their goals, what they're doing afterwards.
Really directs them in the right path, and it makes them more confident about themselves because they can say, this is what I need and this is what I'm going to do to get there. And if they say that and they think that, they're actually going to do it.
Not only are they empowered, and they end up really focusing on where they're going in life, but it also starts way back when they figure out what it is they're good at. And that is an important piece of this.
I think by having the students lead the meeting, it definitely becomes more authentic.
When the student is speaking, they're more believable. People are listening instead of talking.
The benefits to the student, there's more than one benefit to a student running their meeting. I think the sense of accomplishment that they get in completing this task.
Yeah, I was more in charge.
When students are empowered, and when I say empowered, I mean we give them the authority to take control of what the goals are for them, it then builds intrinsic motivation.
They thought it was excellent. They thought I had something in mind.
So intrinsic motivation, I think, becomes an inherent part of these meetings because we're looking at kids' volition and initiative towards things that they want to work towards.
In my experience, when the student has led the meeting, it not only leads to a better meeting, a more pleasant, positive meeting, but it also leads to better follow-through after the meeting and the student following what the recommendations are because they really feel like they're a part of the process, not just having adults dictate a plan to them that they have to follow, but they have a voice.
It was special. It wasn't meaningless. You know, it meant something because I was able to make my own decisions.
When we turn the power of the meeting over to the student, they become much more active. When they feel that they have the authority to decide what their own goals are, what they're working towards, it gives them the motivation to speak out, to self-advocate. So between the self-awareness and the empowerment, you then have a student really acting in their own best interest, and it's something that's really neat to see.
Make you confident.
So I was a little bit nervous for my first one, but I got used to it a little bit. And then my second year of doing it, I was not nervous.
I will not be nervous going to the meeting this year because since I did it last year and it went very well.
It helps them to grow and mature as a young person, to learn presentation skills. Certainly it's an extension of what we ask them to do in school with assignments. If they have to write papers or they have to do presentations. This is just another task that they have to do, which helps them refine those skills. But more than that, it's their voice in their IEP. It's their voice in the process.
The actual product of them being at this meeting, which has typically been run by their parents and the teacher, sometimes adversarial, is so powerful for that student to feel like they have a say as they start to move into their older years, that they've got some control, some say, that they're not all empowering, but they've got some power in what happens next. And giving them a structure for that, so they're just not saying willy-nilly, I want to be a, but they've actually had to think about how you'll get there. They've actually had to think about how the school can help with that, so that they see it all as a big picture. I think it's priceless.
The best thing about making my own IEP and writing it was the fact that I was being heard. I could have my own voice and I could share my own opinions with everybody.
And they're a voice in their life now. They aren't just having adults tell them what they're going to do. It's them saying, here's what I want to do. And how can that ever be a bad thing? It's wonderful to see young people buy in and to really invest in their future and be motivated and directed toward a goal and feel like they're a part of the process. I would think that any special education student, if they can feel that, is going to be successful.
When I learned Jill was going to self-advocate for herself, I was nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, what is she going to say and how is she going to act?
I've never had a parent come out of a meeting that didn't leave happy and smiling as they've seen their student take charge and talk about what their own goals were, what their own needs were.
At the meeting, when I saw Jill self-advocate for herself, oh my gosh, what she had put on her PowerPoints and what she was listing of how she wanted her life to be and what her goals were, it was so awesome. I started crying.
Because you can make your own decision, like what you like, what's your plan, what's your goal.
She used her voice, because sometimes when she gets around other people, because of her deafness, she doesn't use her voice, and she used her voice.
Because I can pick up for myself, knowing what I want.
I would like to have more parents have their children at the CSE meetings, because I think it advocates for their child and let their child speak, because they do have a voice and they grow as an individual to say, hey, this is my life, not yours, mine.
I don't dread IEP day anymore. I'm baking cookies, I'm sitting back, I'm listening, and I don't have to say much. I just have to make sure that my 20-page document matches what that student and family wants. And I have to let go of the power that I used to have of thinking that I had to write it, it had to be all my ideas, and that's not a team approach. So letting go of that power that came from writing the IEP, and let the team write the IEP with the student leading, and let the IEP flow. And it's okay if the IEP is not done that day. It's okay to have it be an open document. And for a teacher just coming in, that's stressful. We were taught in college to hammer out the IEP, make sure all the goals were standard-based and all of the rules. And you still have to follow those, but they can be done after the IEP meeting comes to a close. And then everybody can look at it, make sure they like it.
One of the benefits of a student-led CSE meeting is that the mainstream teachers are able to see that student in a different light, with them able to direct their own CSE meeting. That's not something that they usually see in the classroom.
Working with administration was very easy at our school, mostly because it's a win-win once an administrator sees it. So getting an administrator to buy into seeing one student-led meeting works wonders because they automatically see how much a student-led meeting, if it's a true process and not a show, can alleviate all of that stress that often comes on the administrator. The administrator's the one who's being told that they need to hire 100% aide and they need to buy a, huge computer program. If it comes from the student's going to be honest about how much of that computer program they use, how much of an aid is necessary, and you're getting a more honest answer. And so I think for administration to buy in, they have to see it.
To administrators who were reluctant to have students lead CSE meetings, I would say that we can still meet the requirements of whether it be the annual review or a program review or whatever the purpose of the meeting is, while still allowing the student to run the meeting. I think that we as adults sometimes have a fear of loss of control, especially in a meeting like that, and typically the meetings run one after another, so there's a time constraint. But I think with the student involved, the parents are oftentimes more involved. The meeting itself becomes more collaborative. It becomes more of a team-based approach, and in many ways, the meeting moves more quickly. We let go of the jargon, we let go of the categorical areas of the IEP that we feel we need to cover, and we're looking at the student as more of a whole.
Not all special education teachers may be comfortable with this model of student-directed CSEs, but they need to know that as long as they give the students the guidance that they need, the students will be successful, and then they will feel the pride and the comfort knowing that that CSE meeting went so smoothly because it was student-directed. There are many ways that students can be empowered to participate in their CSE meetings. They don't have to present the entire meeting. They can just show up with one slide or one piece of information that they have thought about and scripted to talk about either their goals or what they need from that district the following year.
I've started to do it with everyone. Anyone who comes through my program, and I teach students of varying abilities. I have a really memorable IEP meeting of a student who is nonverbal. And I wasn't sure we could pull it off, He really wanted to lead his own meeting. He was he has some words. He has a vocabulary maybe of 30 to 40 words. And he kept saying, me too, me too. So we tried it, and we did all pictorial. So we did all 3 parts of his IEP were pictures. When he talked about his now, this year's present levels, he talked about the job he had, and he had a picture of it. All right, well, let's talk about and tell everybody at the meeting what's going on with you this year. All right, so tell me, what's going on with you this year? You are working that's all Army, nice. Oh, to watch him do that with these pictures, and then to put what his future, because I wasn't sure he could pull off what he thought about for his future, but he did. He had some things that he made sure that he wanted in his recreation and in his living. He really had some ideas. I don't think anybody would have asked him if we hadn't done this.
Just think of it like it's about you, what you want. Just think about it like that.
My advice is not get scared or nervous.
We try to make it fun.
The IEP meetings can be fun.
Yep.
Just relax a little. Don't stress over it.
Take a deep breath.
And say, I know I can do this.
Just be confident, know what you want.
And practice, because that helps.
This is your chance to say what you want to do.
Advocate for my